people don't like to talk about. It's too uncomfortable to talk about sex, politics, and religion. So we're going to tackle at least one of those today, maybe two. We'll see how it goes with my guest, Miranda Jo Davis, whose book is called Christian Girl in a Yoga World. So welcome to the show, Miranda Jo Davis. Miranda, how are you today?
I'm great, Doug. I'm so excited to be here and talk about one of these taboo subjects with you.
Ah,
And I look forward to enlightening your listeners on a little more.
it's only taboo to people who aren't open-minded, right? We don't care about those. We want to focus on people who actually are curious, right? So we're going to enjoy our mocktail, cocktail, whatever you're drinking there, and have a conversation about your book.
Okay, cheers.
Yeah, cheers. So, see, in my background. I mean, I'm not going to get into it, but I've been all over the world, so I've seen, the Hindu stuff, Buddhist stuff, Christian stuff, Jewish stuff, Muslim stuff. It's all the same to me. But you're talking about Christians practicing yoga to not compromise their faith. I didn't know yoga would compromise their faith. How does this? What do you mean by that?
Isn't that interesting to
Yeah,
think about?
yeah,
That's probably the most feedback I've gotten about the book. People are like, this is very interesting.
yeah.
But, I didn't know that either, Doug. And so it all started back for me in 1999. I was just a seeker looking for something, and
Mm-hmm.
I was not ascribing to any faith at the time. I did not grow up in a Christian home. I had a really wild lifestyle at the time, was newly married, had a marriage that was in trouble already,
Mm-hmm.
and was looking for something to ease my anxiety. And at the suggestion of two different people, it took two people telling me that I should try yoga. And,
Yeah.
I tried yoga and I was hooked the very first class. I loved it. I'm a dancer in my background and choreographer, and I was in that world dancing and had a lot of stress in my life. It's a stressful lifestyle in the dance world, as far as the way you look, the way you perform,
Mm-hmm.
even, your weight. I'm going to go ahead and say that, that's all those kinds of things are concerns. And I had a chronic condition. I had irritable bowel syndrome, and I was 24 years old, and I struggled with vomiting and diarrhea much
Oh
of my life.
man, so you had to like leave the stage every hour or something like that, huh?
Not every hour,
Well,
maybe
whatever
if
it
it
was.
was,
I don't know.
that would be a tough gig.
Yeah, that'd be
Um,
rough.
but it was frequent, and so I did have to deal with that. But the yoga was amazing. The first class I tried, all the postures, fell in love with them, and I think that's because of my dance background. But you know what? At the end, Doug, when she told us to lay down and take those deep breaths
Hmm.
and relax, my mind went into a battle. Like, why are we laying here? Why are we being still? Why are we breathing? I mean, my type A, I talk about being a recovering perfectionist. My type A perfectionistic mind could not relax to save my life. And
Hmm.
because I'm type A, I went back every week because I wanted
I
to
gotta
get
fix
that.
this.
That's right. I'm going to learn how to relax. And so I went
Mm-hmm.
back week after week.
Right. Okay. So, how long did you practice yoga until you got settled in? We could actually, empty your mind and participate in the mind as well as the body part of it.
I think that that's something that's evolved over many years, but
Mm-hmm.
I would say within the first year, I felt dramatically different.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed the IBS bouts were less frequent. I noticed that I had more awareness. I really recognized that I lacked a lot of awareness,
Mm.
even though I was a dancer and I had a lot of kinesthetic and physical awareness about my body. I didn't have a lot of mental and emotional awareness about my body.
Mm.
And I struggled, as I mentioned, with anxiety, but I also, had trouble with anger and a lot of other emotions that I didn't process in a healthy way.
Mm.
And so the meditative side of yoga was really, really foundational for me, and it was
Nice.
life changing. But it didn't take away the anxiety completely. And so I still felt like I was looking for something. And it just so happened that one day I opened up my mailbox and this mailer came and it had this happy little couple on it. And it said, come to our marriage series at a local church. And I'm going to tell you, Doug, church was the last place I wanted to be. But I was pretty desperate. As I said, my marriage
Mm.
was falling apart at that
Yeah.
time, and yoga wasn't fixing that. And I was kind of desperate. And I actually asked my husband if he would go, and he said no. Um, so I was like, okay, he's like, I don't need that. I don't want that. And so I kind of made up my mind. I was like, I told him, I think the day before, I was like, I'm going to this by myself if I have to.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up, putting the clothes on the next day on Sunday morning, and he went with me.
Nice, nice. And was it love at first sight, or you had to like ease into that?
You know what? It was just like yoga. It was literally love at first sight. And I'll tell you why, because I didn't know this at the time, but it was an outreach church, and their whole mission were to look for people like me, people who had no concept really of what Jesus and God was. And my concept at the time was, I grew up in my home. I said we weren't a Christian home. And so people of faith were made fun of. People of faith were weak people. Like, you needed something to make your life better. And so I had the mentality that if you were smart enough, tried hard enough, if you worked hard enough, you could overcome anything. But that wasn't helping me with the problems in my marriage. And so I heard a message that day that really gave me a little bit of hope. And so it was enough hope to keep going back. And it was within a couple of weeks that I did become a Christian, and I decided to ask Jesus to be my Lord and Savior.
Oh, that's nice. How about your husband? How did he deal with that?
He didn't do very well, and that's his story to tell. So
you can share a little bit if you want. It's all right. I mean, he was there, and you could say, well, I acclimated quickly. Maybe it took a little longer. That's all right.
He does. We've had several conversations around this because, we've been married now for 20 years, and today I want to say he's my best friend. I love this guy. He's awesome. His faith evolved more slowly, and he had his own. He had some pretty significant struggles that he went through early on in our marriage, and we were married, 10 years, and had to overcome a lot of big obstacles and a lot of big hurdles that were really painful and hurtful. But today we use that. We're marriage mentors. We mentor to other people whose marriages are struggling, and we have a heart for marriage, and we love helping people move past that because, divorce was definitely something talked about between the two of us.
Sure.
We separated and things like that, but it's neat to see. We do ascribe our faith. We say, it's God that restored that and showed us how to have a healthy and functioning marriage.
Oh, nice. Okay. So let me get to the thing that I'm puzzled or curious about is the blending of Christianity and yoga. To me, yoga seems a pretty secular, like, hey, I'm going to go and stretch out, empty my mind. There's no non-secular part about it. It's pretty much just for your mind and body. Why does it have to have a Christian bent to it?
It doesn't have to have that because for many years I practiced secular yoga. I actually, I heard you mention that you traveled the world. I did too, Doug. I taught the world yoga. I traveled around and worked for this company out of Los Angeles where I was what was called a senior master trainer. And I worked my way up to the very top and was able to be a global trainer. And I taught that specific style of yoga, which was secular. But what happened to me, Doug, was that as I grew in my knowledge of yoga and really, I've been educated to the highest level in yoga. But then as I continued to grow in my faith, because you have to remember, I didn't know very much about the Bible or Jesus or God. So as I continued to really pursue that, because that was a passion too, I found out that the two worlds collided.
Really?
And so
how so?
They collided in that, at the root of yoga is Buddhist and Hindu teaching. And so it exalts many gods. And as a matter of fact, as one of my teachers who taught me said, there's many paths to one God. Well, I didn't take belief in that because of what I had learned from the Bible that says there's only one path to God, and that's through Jesus. And so that became my main theme of why that was conflicting to me. So I just kind of started thinking about how can I practice yoga? This was I came through maybe a year or two of really struggling and praying and asking God to show me a way. And I just didn't need that part of the yoga, this very deep spiritual undertones connected to Buddhism and Hinduism. I just needed to continue to practice the mental and physical benefits. And then I decided to adapt it and apply scripture. So that's truth for me.
That's cool. That's great for you. I haven't taken any formal yoga classes like a lot of friends who do, and not once have they mentioned anything to do with religion.
Sure. A lot of people maybe they're not exposed to it.
Yeah.
I too have encountered that many times myself. I know that there's a lot of practices actually here in the Western world, hatha, which just means all physical yoga. That's usually what we practice over here in the United States.
Right,
but
okay.
I studied in India. And so that's when the first bit of what I really learned, that's when I was first exposed. And so that's where I kind of started to have the conflicts.
Right. But when you came back from India, you were not a Christian yet, right?
I was a Christian. I became a Christian in 1999, and I traveled to India in 2008.
Oh, okay. So it's after the fact. Well, so there's higher levels of yoga. Yeah, it gets into their cultural norms, which is Hindu based, right?
Yes, and I was
Okay.
very naive, Doug. I will admit it. I had no idea what I was opening myself up to. But, they say there's different levels of Christianity. I just wasn't as mature or aware in my faith then until I got over there. And, I was asked to bow down in front of other gods. I was asked to chant and say things that exalted other gods. And when I refused to do that, then I was told that I was closed-minded, and I was told that I should not go to that church that I went to anymore. And I was also found out that I was in jeopardy of losing my job.
Why can't we all just get along, man? Why can't? What's the? I'm sorry. This is my opinion, of course, not yours. But like,
Sure.
what's the point? Why not just accept everybody? I mean, what's the what?
I get that too, Doug, but I believe acceptance is the key to everything, right?
Yeah,
Acceptance, just accepting people where they are and
yeah,
loving people where they are. That's
right.
really the core of what Jesus did.
Hmm.
And so, your truth is your truth, or my truth is my truth. And we don't
Right,
have to agree upon that, but we can still love each other where we are. That's
right.
really the essence of how I live by and how I teach.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So at the higher levels of yoga, I can see how that would happen, going to another culture, another religion like that. When you came back to the United States, do you see a lot of that happening here too, where they're focusing on the religious aspect of yoga, or is that just your experience?
It just depends, because I am very connected to the yoga community.
Hmm.
So I know that different studios offer different types of yogic training.
Right.
So it's, if you were out there looking, if you were seeking,
Hmm.
and you just wanted to really focus on the physical and the mental benefits, there's certain things that gyms. A gym is a great place to go,
Right.
because gyms ascribe to people of all religious faiths, so they
Hmm.
don't bring really any spiritual teachings in.
Right.
But then if you go to a yoga studio, I mean, some things like as a Christian that I would look for is look at their menu, their schedule of what they teach. Do they offer things where there's chanting? Do they offer things where there's, do they do book studies on religious texts that are
Mm.
Hindu or Buddhist based? Those are all kinds of things to me where I could ask questions, to the person who's presenting it, or I could just avoid it completely because it's so mainstream. It's like genres of music. There's enough yoga and
Mm.
kinds of yoga for everyone to find something that's going to be best for them.
I like that. Okay. So tell me about you have your copy of your book handy? People can know what it is. Pull it up. There we go. Christian Girl in the Yoga World. And that's available on Amazon, I guess, right?
It
All
is,
right.
yes.
Very good.
And it just became a bestseller.
Hey, congratulations. That's terrific. Okay. So give me the essence of the book. What if I'm at a yoga studio, I got a whole menu there. What does your book provide or guide me on?
It's going to guide you through a lot of my situations. So the format of the book is every chapter starts out with a situation that I've had in yoga that was troubling to my faith or conflicting with my faith. And then it gives you some biblical and scriptural application on
Yeah.
how you can apply that to your life. And then at the end of each chapter, there's questions. So I give people opportunities. You could do this in a book club. You could do self-study. So it's a very reflective book for people to in their own personal path, or if they're doing this as a group. I have so many stories, Doug, and so that's what inspired the book. I mean, even after I came back from India, I still had, more things that I could write about. And so this is just the first of a series. This is kind of like my personal story, helping other Christians to navigate the yoga world. And then my second book will be like an how-to. How do you exactly do that?
Right. Okay. So you got some great stories there. I want to hear one. What's the first one that comes to
Okay.
mind?
Okay, so this is a story that happened in Denver. So I told you I traveled a lot, went to Denver, and I was taking a higher level of training from this lovely gal. She was super cute, blonde. She had the fun pants on and the fun jewelry. And, I just fell in love with her. And I was like, this is going to be awesome. The second day of the training, everything was going great. The second day of the training, she says, we're going to talk about crystals. And so she gets out all her crystals, and I mean, she's a hippie chick. I just love, that earthy hippie chick vibe.
Yeah.
She gets out all her crystals and lays them out. And I kind of start feeling a little inside like, okay, is this something that's going to be good for me? I'm not sure. So I did. I prayed in my mind, said a prayer in my mind.
Sure.
And she says, pick a crystal that resonates with you. And so I was like, well, I don't know if it's
Diamond.
resonating with me, but I love blue.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm going to get the blue crystal. Pick the blue crystal and we get a partner. And what we did is we hung the crystal from a pendulum,
Oh boy.
and then you place it over each part of your body that is an energetic field in your body. So the whole study behind this was that we're all just energy, and that even working with materials, moves the energy. And so I certainly, that makes sense to me, scientific, right?
Right.
So I'm like, hey, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
So my partner's laying there. I start to dangle my crystal over the specific places until I get to her heart.
Yeah.
And when I get to her heart, it was literally like something opened between us.
Aw.
And everything from her heart that was sad and tragic came into my body.
Ugh, that's not good. You got to block that.
It wasn't good, Doug.
That's empathy.
I don't recommend it.
No, it's
Bawling, crying, heavy grief. I mean, it freaked me out, honestly.
Yeah,
But my instructor was sweet, and she came by my side, and she said, what happened was this was her explanation, some vortex opened between us, and I felt everything that lady had ever felt in her heart. And then the lady set up and told me about her boyfriend that was murdered, told me about her children that were missing, told me about estranged relationships. And I had never experienced anything that heavy of amount of grief. But so it was just one of those things where at the end I was like, okay, I get it, God. This is not for me. You're closing that door. Crystals aren't for me. So that's just one of my stories.
wow. Yeah. Open up her heart chakra and all this crap poured out. That's great.
Yes.
Well, there's something inside. There are empaths, and I have a real good friend who's like around somebody. He's very empathetic, right? And when somebody is sad, he would get sad. I mean, it's kind of a basic thing for people to go to that level. It's certainly it could be dangerous because that energy or whatever it is gets in you, and then you feel like crap. It's horrible. You gotta
That's right.
Yeah, block that.
Clear it out yourself.
Yeah. Wow, it's amazing. So, but that was a crystal experience. It wasn't really they weren't converting you to Hinduism or anything. It was
just, a different type of experience. And, I do love essential oils, and there's a lot of things that meditatively that I utilize, love nature meditations and things. And you just, not all of it's for me. So, if crystals are for you, you use your crystals. Good for you.
Sure. Great. And so any other good ones besides that one in the book? Give another second story.
Well, I'd love for you to read the book so that you could get a few more out
you
of
got to
it.
give me a really good story so that people who watch this will want to buy it. So this is your chance to sell it. Say, well, there's just one story, and then you leave us hanging at the end. Don't tell us how it ends. So people got to buy the book. That's just
okay. All righty. So, have you ever been to a Gong meditation? Have you ever heard of Gong meditation?
Oh, you mean a Gong bath?
Gong, yeah.
Well, I've been to Asia quite a bit, so I know there's gongs at a lot of the temples there. And somebody told me about a gong bath and the resonation of the audio is supposed to, I know a little bit about it. I know enough to make fun of it.
Okay. So, hey, I went to a gong bath, went to a gong meditation. Again, I am very prayerful, and I just say, hey, God, is this for me, or is this something I should or should not do? Yeah. And went to it, and again, cool guy, had his John Lennon's on, tie-dye shirt, bell bottoms, long hair, and I was like, this is me awesome. He had tons of all kinds of gongs, big, little, small, they were all set up, and it started out awesome. He said too, if you need to leave for any reason, it's okay to go ahead and leave.
In case your gongs are out of tune and it's upsetting my perfect pitch ear, I can't take it. Yes.
Or if it's scaring you to death, right? Which is that's a little insight right there. So I'll just kind of leave it at that. Gongs can be scary, and there can be people in the room who get very disturbed during gong experiences, which was very disturbing to me. So
if you want to hear about the zombie apocalypse axe murder gong bath story, it's in Miranda's book, Christian Girl in the Yoga World. Thank you very much for being on the show today. We really appreciate your time. Any last words or any piece of advice for people who are looking into yoga as from a Christian perspective?
Yeah, I just think that finding what works for you and finding the right instructor is what's really important. The Bible does talk about yoking yourself with the right people, and I think that just goes with life in general. Finding people that are your people and making that your community and your tribe.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time, Sarah. I really appreciate it. The book, folks, is called Christian Girl in a Yoga World, available at Amazon.com. get your copy, enjoy it, and you might want to avoid the gong bath. Up to you.